Welcome back. There are several stories running around today in the economy section. You'll see being uploaded within the next 20 minutes or so at the site. And they're very provocative, very interesting. The so-called booming economy of President Donald Trump, to me and to everyone I've asked, honestly, it doesn't exist. It just doesn't. Statistics are an easy thing to play with, and they are playing statistical games on us all the time. We have a new guest tonight, first time on the program. He is Christopher Duane. He's a financial and investing expert and founder of the Sons of Liberty Academy. Are you there, Chris?
I am, Jeff. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, you bet. Nice to talk to you. There is a story today, and I can't quite put my fingers on it right now, but it says, essentially, is the U.S. debt, our national debt, really $400 trillion instead of the alleged, what is it, 24 trillion, something like that? I don't know if you've seen that story or not, but it's pretty wild. Go ahead.
It is. It's actually very scary when you realize the ramifications of it, because the debt that has been accrued is global, it's generational, and it's a debt-based fiat Ponzi scheme. Our entire way of life is financed off of debt, and it's coming to an end because since the foundation of the Federal Reserve, where they brought in this fractional reserve banking and created debt as money, prior to the Federal Reserve, we had gold and silver as money.
Yeah, instead of the creation of the Federal Reserve, how about the criminal installation of the Federal Reserve over the dominance and sovereignty of our nation in 1913 by a corrupt Congress? Man.
Over Christmas.
Anyway, yeah, that's right. Go ahead.
So, I mean, they created the largest, most powerful monopoly, essentially created a new religion of debt money. I think everybody can agree when it comes to one religion, everybody prays to dollars and yuan and money, and they control it, and they get to control our reality as a result. Once you control the money, you can control the politicians, the corporations, armies, nations, fates of nations, rise and falls of industries. Doesn't matter. You own the money. And the wonderful thing is they've painted themselves into such a corner that they're not going to be able to hide behind politicians or CEOs that they trump out there like they did in 2008 and said, it was these guys. No, there's people that own and control the paradigm, and they own the central banks of the world, and I have a feeling this time humanity is going to go, those are the guys we need to be watching out for.
That's what George Herbert Walker Bush was talking about when he said, if they, meaning us, the general public, knew what we were really doing, they'd chase us down the streets and hang us from the nearest lamppost. Something to that effect. He's right.
Or
if
worse.
The people ever woke up,
Or worse, we just finally realized that we don't need them. They're a parasite, and we can do far better without them. That's what they really
we
fear.
never needed them. Absolutely. You said that they control our reality. In fact, they create and control our reality. And it might as well be I don't know, we're living on the planet debt. It's all debt. You're right. It's all an illusion. It's a Ponzi. It's a fraud. It doesn't really exist except in the holders of the notes. To them, it's quite real. And the rest of the people, go ahead.
You know how they got this? Very, very early on, very cunning men had a lot of knowledge. They knew that this universe was actually based off of one abundant love. They knew this because that's how the Earth progressed. We just natural ecosystems that give rise and fall to this amazing life that we have that's the perfect distance from the sun, and that any rational person looking at the natural world would see that this is a one abundant love that this Earth is. And these cunning men realized that and said, what if I threw up a symbol and said, no, we're separate from each other, we're separate from Earth, and we're separate from God? How much power do you think those men would have over? How much power do you think those men would have? A lot. So it's progressed through the ages.
Sure.
So it's progressed through the ages, through our religions, and then passed through our governments, and now it's gotten to the place where the bankers are the most powerful. But guess what? All of them are based off of lies, because it still hasn't changed the one abundant love fact that the earth and everything that progresses on here is based off of love, and we're all one, and that, everything happens for a reason, including these guys. These bad guys that have funded all these world wars, that have created all this debt, that have wreaked havoc. Financial institutions, they needed to all happen so that we finally get to a place where we can no longer ignore what has been growing in our midst this whole time. This cunning group of men that hold up symbols and say that we're all different, and we're not. So this next collapse, I think that a lot of people are going to wake up and go, I have a lot more in common with my neighbor than any of these bankers, any of these politicians, any of these people on TV, and I'm just going to stop watching them. And watch how quick you empower every single person that says, I refuse to participate in anything that doesn't resonate with me. No more voting, no more politicians, not going to give my life to a military that would send me off to war and indebt me, not going to pay for corporations, and people just start, focusing on themselves and their neighbors and finding out where their food is and stuff. Because unfortunately, one way or the other, that's how we're going to be, because this Ponzi scheme's going to collapse, and we're going to have to get back to doing what worked before they all came to power.
The funny part about it is we talk about neighbors, and I forget the percentage, but an awful lot of Americans have never even met their neighbors. They don't know them. They see them. So your point about the bankers is well taken. Even though you may not know your neighbor, far more important to you than a banker, at least in the sense that we're discussing here. You say that we really live in a world of debt, as you said, and it's debt until death, isn't it? How many people actually ever escape their debt before they pass away?
It's a rigged game. It's not even the debt that we incur. It's the fact that our money is debt. Now, I came from a very wealthy family that made a lot of money off of creating a lot of debt. So we owned 7 car dealerships in my prior life. And as I realized from being on the top looking down, is that when people go in to buy cars, they don't come in with, $40,000 of cash or $40,000 of gold or $40,000 of anything. They go in there and sign a debt note. So
about
when that debt gets created, and when that debt gets created, that's when money gets created. That's how money is created. Every time somebody takes out debt, that's where the money comes from. We get paid right away at the car dealership, banks get paid, and then this person pays over time. So the whole thing is a Ponzi scheme, and it's global, and it's generational, and it's going to come to an end. And when it does, it'll be the single largest event in human history. And I'm a believe that no lie will get to the other side, because this collapse will not only take down stock markets and housing markets, but also the currencies and all the power that derives off of that. The governments, the religious institutions, the political institutions, all these institutions that nobody would have seen this coming, because they're all benefiting off of it and turned a blind eye to the evil that's been rising in our midst.
Evil doesn't even come close in my book, but yes, very well said, summed up perfectly. The idea of signing for a new car loan, it's about 30 pages worth of stuff now, and nobody ever reads it. Nobody reads any of it. It's just signed. So how does that tie in when you say it's the actual creation of money in that act? How does that tie in with fractional banking? Is that part of it? Does that money actually come out of the fractional cushion, that 90% or better cushion that the banks actually sit on and create money with? Is that where it comes from?
Pretty much. So essentially, if there's a $40,000 car loan, typically they would want like 10 to 20% down. So somebody would take, $4,000 or $5,000 of cash down and apply that to the loan, and that becomes the capital to which they leverage your own capital that you put down. They just create the rest of it out of thin air with this paper instrument, and it comes into existence. So
what Chris is saying, this is important. What Christopher is saying is that let's say you put 20%, $8,000 down on that car. Somebody in the chain is going to be creating 90% more than that $8,000. They're allowed to do it by law. So whatever institution actually receives that $8,000, they are by law allowed, and many of you don't know this, to create 90% more than that $8,000. 10% has to be on deposit, so to speak, and they can create the other 90%. That's fractional banking. What a scam.
And it's actually worse at the top. So the big Wall Street banks, they actually have no limit. I think J.P. Morgan can have less than 0.5% reserves backing up all their bets.
No limit.
Yeah. Because these guys own and control the system. So when things go bad, guess what? They go to the government. The government goes to the taxpayers, and they all get bailed out. That's what happened in 2008. This next time, I don't think they're going to be as lucky. I think this next financial crisis, because nothing got solved in 2008.
I can't wait. I want to see this. What is the clock is ticking, but where is it? 11:30? Where?
October.
You really think? Possibility?
I've been waiting for October forever. I don't know which year it is, but it always feels like whenever it's going to go down, it's going to be some October.
I get your point.
And this one seems particularly interesting because of given all the stuff that Trump's going through, the trade wars that are going through. There's a lot of heavy things coming against the tide, and it's not going to take much to make this pop.
It's always the month of October. Just remember that, friends. October is a dark and dirty month in some respects, not to mention Halloween. This is interesting. Trump's booming economy must give you certainly a chuckle or two. Yeah. Mm-hmm. How's he get away with it?
Off of debt. Because he came in saying he was going to get rid of the debt in 8 years, right? Or 4 years or something like that. Something ridiculous.
That's right. And then he's increased it by over $3 trillion officially so far.
And he would have done more if he could have. That's why he's been pounding the Fed to lower rates, because he knows, as well as I do, and you know, that this whole country is based off of debt. So the more debt that they create, the more false economy is going to balloon out of it. The problem is the payback. There will be a crack-up boom at some point where the interest payment becomes too large that we can't even pay the interest on it, much less any of the principal back anymore.
We're damn close to that right now.
Printed away. Yeah. They're going to do currency devaluation.
What is it? What is
currency devaluation?
Okay.
Yeah.
What is the amount of debt service that we pay every year? It's huge. What's the latest on that? I can't keep track of the statistics.
Yeah, I mean, from last I remember, it was like $500 billion a year. But that was before the interest rates started going down again, because the central banks are buying more money, creating money out of thin air and lowering the interest rates.
I heard it was 75%. 75% on the dollar goes to interest in one category or another. I don't know if that's true, but it's way up there. So, okay, we live in an illusory state. We live in a world of debt. But what you're saying, if I'm hearing you correctly, is that these bankers, these ghouls, think of a world of debt as a world of real currency and real value. To them, debt is value. To them, debt is cash. Cash to them is not debt. They'd rather have debt, wouldn't they? Am I correct? Because debt comes with interest and percentage.
That's right.
Yes.
And control. That's what they really want. They want control. They create all this out of thin air to have control. It's not even about the money. They don't care. They know it's as fake as they do. That's why they create it out of thin air. So the only solution I've seen, and I've studied this for, 15 years, is to recognize that the entire world is a Ponzi scheme, that we're literally living in the everything bubble. Like, they can't even say it's a stock bubble. They can't even say it's a housing bubble. They can't say it's a tech bubble. It's an everything bubble. Every single market asset class, vintage cars, art market, the sneaker market, the stock market, everything is in a bubble except for silver and gold. And there's a reason for that, because silver and gold are the antithesis to this debt and death paradigm. And they have been criminally suppressed for well over 137 years. They demonetized it. They caused 2 opium wars against China, because China once owned 25% of the world's silver. And there was a massive trade imbalance, and the British couldn't settle the trade imbalance, so they started importing opium from their vassal country that they stole $45 trillion from, the Indians, and brought opium into China, and had 2 opium wars where 7 different nations were basically raping dynastic China to the point where it collapsed, and then we got the Chinese communists that came out of this. So they are wholly responsible for for all the wars, all the turmoil out there, and it's all been about who controls the money. And the answer is their system's going to die, and you better get back to what really worked prior to them, and that's silver. That is the most common form of money. It's been used in all cultures throughout all time, and 1/10 of an ounce of silver, or a silver dime, has been the measure of a hard day's worth of hard human labor. And unfortunately, most Americans don't even have a silver dime in their house anymore. They're so impoverished with these illusions, and it really makes me upset. They hold on to these dollars, they hold on to these digits in the bank account, and that's the ultimate that's the problem. So the only way to do this is to say it's a rigged game, and the only way you can win a rigged game is not to play. Take your money out of the bank, stop voting for these guys, and start getting real about your friends, your family, your skills, and what's in front of you.
Take your money out of the bank and do what with it?
Buy silver, buy gold, buy seeds, buy ammo, buy anything that's real. All your digits in the bank are digital illusions of wealth. They're only worth something as soon as you exchange it for something. So why do we settle for fake wealth when we can have real wealth?
So what you're saying is, let me get this clear because it's a very good point. The money you think you have in the bank really doesn't exist. It's just numbers. It only exists if you take it out of the bank. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's called real tangible wealth as opposed to a future promise on wealth, which is what all money is. It's a future promise on wealth and not real wealth itself.
Wow. All right.
So start paying yourself like a king would and say, I want treasure, I want booty, I want loot, I want real things that I can count. Cold, hard cash, meant silver dollars, not paper receipts of nothing, digital illusion of nothing, cold, hard cash.
Chris, should people run their credit cards and buy real things? Should they play the game back in the face of those who created it?
I get that asked all the time, man. I cannot say that because the interest rates on these credit cards are loan sharks, and short of a Venezuelan collapse where they have hyperinflation where it was going up hundreds and thousands of percent. No, I wouldn't play that game. Just you're better off selling. Like I've had multiple garage sales. I can't tell you how much stuff I've just sold. It's given me a clean, minimalistic house. I've sold a lot of stuff that I don't need, and I was able to go buy more silver.
All right. I've raised this issue over the years. Yeah, I got you. Let me go back to that in a minute. Silver in bulk is not easy to carry around. So that raises a lot of issues of safe storage. So I don't want anything other than what's commonly available, but how do people do this? I've had people tell me you buy silver dollars, you get PVC pipe, you put an end cap on one end, you fill the pipe up with silver dollars, you bury it in the ground vertically, so it's harder to target with a metal detector. You don't lay it horizontally. That's one way. The generic question is, are there really good, reasonably safe ways to secure your silver should you buy it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, hiding silver, you know what the problem is for most people? They're afraid to take responsibility for their wealth. That's ultimately what this comes down to.
They're afraid to take responsibility for anything.
Yeah, I know, but especially this, because this is something that's very important. And I think that's why we got lulled into the idea of the banks and the safe. Meanwhile, we always knew that there was no money in there, and this is all a scam, but we all play the game, so it's a safe thing. So the good thing is most people hiding, 1,000 ounces of silver is not that much difficult. You can dig a hole in 5 minutes and do that. And there's many creative ways of hiding it. The only thing you have to do is basically keep it out of plain sight. And even if it's in plain sight, I had a friend who had a 50-pound nugget of silver. He used it as a doorstop and just painted it black. No one knew,
That's clever. I like that. That's very good.
But, and see, that's the thing. Like, this isn't brain surgery. This is recognizing that the system is horribly controlled by the wrong people, doing all the wrong things, and it's going to not end well. Right?
And
we
frankly,
can't possibly pay $400 trillion worth of unfunded liabilities in an economy that's barely functioning now, with our youngest generation with $1.5 trillion of student loan debt that can never be gotten rid of.
Correct.
They can't even start a family, buy a car. Like, where's our demographics going to be in 10, 20 years?
The millennials,
if you really want to get depressed, then after this financial collapse, then the guys that have all the money and power, guess what? They're now armed with AI and robotics, and they're going to make all of our jobs impossible. Get rid of all the trucking.
I just ran a story today.
This is the last
McDonald's.
chance, folks.
Yeah,
last chance.
Okay,
get your money out of the system.
Yeah, hold on. Let's come back to that. That's a very important point. McDonald's today announced that they're installing more and more drive-through AI operations in their franchises. So those jobs are going away. Within 5 years, many, if not most, of the bottom-end jobs that we talk about now as, well, they're always going to be there. They're not always going to be there. They're going to be gone. So hold on. We'll be right back with Chris Duane in just a couple minutes. Very, very good conversation. Hold on. This is something that people just cannot compute. Officially, we are in debt $25 trillion. All right. Now, the story that comes out today raises a very distinct possibility that the real debt is $400 trillion. We're in that big of a hole. There's no possibility of us paying off $400 trillion. There's no possibility of us paying off $25 trillion. It's not going to happen. Just like the people who have a $1.5 trillion in student loan debt, that's not going to be paid back either. It's not viable. The whole thing is gone. So what you're suggesting, Chris, is that it's coming down soon. And when it comes down, let's paint a scenario here. And I think we have to include prepping, as in food storage, when we start talking about this kind of crash. So how big is the crash going to be? And give us a thumbnail sketch of it.
Sure. I would consider it to be the single largest event in human history, at least written human history, certainly over the last 6,000 years. Yeah, because think about it. This is the operating system for all of humanity. We're all running
the whole
off this
planet, sure.
the Ponzi scheme. So, of course, if the Ponzi scheme starts to fall apart, look at what's been going on in Venezuela for, I don't know, 7 years now, right? They've had this hyperinflation where silver measured in bolivars used to only be 14 bolivars for an ounce of silver. Now it's well over 1 trillion bolivars because not silver's gone up in value, but they've destroyed the value of the currency. And that's what they're going to do to the dollar, the yuan, the euro, and all these banks. They're going to all start printing lots and lots of money because when the next financial crisis comes, they learned from 2008, they can print trillions of dollars and get away with it. They're the ones that profited off of it. They're the ones that made the bets. They're the ones that profited off of it. Nobody went to jail. Nothing was fixed, and the system's worse. There's double the amount of debt. So whatever you felt in 2008, at least double that. But I have a feeling it's going to be a systemic event that will bring down every single power institution there, and nobody saw it coming. That's the sad part, because we were all culpable in it. We all played along with this lie. So it is my belief that the individuals who recognize this and say, I morally oppose this fraud system, I'm not going to support their banks, I'm not going to support their politicians. I'm not supporting anything outside of what I can touch, feel, taste, and do. And yes, prepping is absolutely a part of that because there's going to be major disruptions. Now, I'm not saying like we're going to be starving because there's going to be a lot of solutions that are going to come out of this. But the operating system, the debt and death paradigm must stop. Without all this debt, there could not be, this $1 trillion war on terror. I mean, why did we spend $6 trillion in the Middle East? We could have furnished solar power for the entire the whole globe for that, and never have another war over oil. Right. But it's not about that. It's about keeping us impoverished, keeping us in debt, keeping us living low. Because then, once you get out of that, you realize we don't need them. We don't need a leader at all. We're our own kings and queens. We just forgot.
That was taken away from us long ago. You're right. Garage sales. Interesting idea. Most everyone who has a garage has cash in that garage that can be invested into silver and gold. Tell us about your garage sales.
It's also a great way of valuing what we actually buy. Everything you buy is worth 10 cents on the dollar. Like I could go buy a brand new TV, right? $2,000 TV. And if I kept it for a year, how much would you get from it in a garage sale? Maybe $200-$300.
Well, you buy
the newer ones
buy
are
a new
out.
car, drive it off the lot. You can just write off 50% of the value of that car, plus all the interest you're going to spend. Anyway, it's a horrible system. Yeah.
I know, and think about how much capital is wasted on all this stuff that doesn't really resonate with us. Because we don't live communally or tribally like we would naturally do inside of a society, everybody's got multiple cars. Like if we lived more like a tribe, more like a family, maybe I only have 5 cars for 20 adults. Like, why would you need more than that? Lawn mowers, all this other stuff. We've been idealized into the suburban lifestyle that we have. Every man has their castle and every man has all the same things. And all it does is keep us all buying all this stuff. And we get to the end of it, have all this stuff, and we're like, I'm 50. I don't have enough money saved up.
The duplication out there is astonishing. Every home has a lawnmower. Every home has a car. Every home has this, has that. It's right. Mm-hmm. That's exactly correct. It's a duplication, death paradigm. Duplication. Everyone's got to have their own. They don't share anymore. Very good point.
Yeah.
Interesting. Now, cars, if you're a car collector and you're investing in something that's going to hold its value, investing in anything. What do you think about investing in good antiques? Things from people that invest in things from the 20s and 30s and
sure.
Not just cars, anything. Art. We'll call it art.
Art.
Bric-a-brac.
Yeah. Any art usually is a great way of transporting wealth from one paradigm to the other. That's what the very wealthy do. That's why they have all these museums, and they never really get hurt. It's the stock markets, it's the bond markets, going to be the housing markets, all these things. These are all the things that the majority of the people have their assets in. But yeah, I mean, if you have this one of a kind, bric-a-brac or I don't know, whatever you collect, then yeah, it's going to hold value. But the relative value of even art and during very hard times is not going to be really worth a lot. That's why you need to have silver as a means of exchange. People think like, what would I do with silver? You would exchange your silver like you would real money for money or land or food or whatever you need.
I want you to go back, if you would, to your description of what you have done in your life with garage sales and lightening the load, getting rid of things you don't need. Tell us about that. That's an interesting thing that a lot of people really don't face. They just don't.
Yeah, I mean, I woke up a couple of years ago after having our third kid and just inundated with stuff in the house. Like you just...
Stuff.
I don't know what it is. Yeah, I honestly don't know what it is because honestly, after I got it out of the house, I couldn't even tell you what I was missing. But there was just stuff that came in and stayed for too long and then left. So, for the last 2.5 years, I've been living a very minimalistic lifestyle.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get rid of everything that I don't use on a monthly, seasonal, yearly basis. And if I don't touch it in a year, it's gone.
Interesting. That's your clock. Okay. If you don't touch it in a year, sell it.
Or throw it out. Throwing it out is quite honestly the best way.
Well, if you
at some
sell
point,
it.
Yeah, I know, but I can't tell you how many garage sales you have where you might sell 10%, 20% of your stuff, and then you're left over with more stuff that is pretty good. But how many times are you going to put it up for sale and have nobody buy it?
I understand. Stuff. Everybody's got stuff. I shouldn't say everybody because a lot of the younger people don't. Millennials have given up on the idea of ever owning a home. A lot of them have given up on the idea of ever starting a family. Not that they wouldn't necessarily want that, but they just realize it's almost an impossibility now economically. This is not good. And Gen Z coming up behind them, and both generations are addicted to their screens. So what do they have in terms of free time? When you're quiet and with yourself is when you think and create. Otherwise, you're always reacting. You're just reacting to stimuli. So you've got to cut the stimuli off and spend some time with yourself and try to come to a realization of what's important to you. You can't do that while you're staring at the tube, the screen, or anything else. It doesn't work. You got to be proactive, not reactive.
Yeah, that's a very important part that you just brought up, the distraction and depression that comes from that, because, once we're on all these screens, we really do isolate ourselves. We are a tribal, vibrant, social beings. We need to be around people. We need to have the feeling of comfort and safety. And it's no wonder that we have so many health problems, mental health problems, physical health problems, because we're devoid. We don't have enough human contact. And I'll tell you what's sadder. We have no contact with the stars. Like, for all of humanity, humans were guided by the stars, connected to the cosmos by the stars, and now we have all these bright lights all over the place, shining all over, so that the majority of humanity doesn't even see the stars now. And what does that do? It makes us look like we're so important. And meanwhile, if you go out, in the Joshua Tree Desert during a dark night during the Milky Way, you realize just how insignificant we are, but also how amazingly beautiful we are, like that we even exist. But you don't get that when you're, on your iPhone, at 10 o'clock at night.
Well, you live in people alone, that sadly spend their lives in urban areas living on concrete and asphalt, literally never have contact with nature. They can go through their whole lives and not be out. You mentioned Joshua Tree, anywhere. They don't get out. Yeah. They don't look up. It's just not something they do. And when you do look up and this registers and it comes home, insignificant, that word isn't even close to what we are. However, your other point on the flip side of that is that how special we are and how unique we are, and how that's all taken away from us constantly. And the sad thing is we give it up voluntarily as a reaction to some kind of stimuli. It's what we
and the great
want.
Thing
we
is,
have to have. Yeah.
The great thing is we can take it back anytime we want. Like, they have no power over us that we don't give them. So if you stop voting for them, guess what? Politicians don't mean anything to you anymore. If you can find ways of making more sustainable income, where you don't have to worry about payroll tax and FICA and all these other things, and actually just do good deeds with good people around you and trade value for value, that's a great way, growing your own food instead of, feeding the grocery stores. I mean, these are all things that are going to happen one way or the other. You can either choose to do it out of necessity and survival, or you can do it ahead of time and prepare for it and thrive, I think. There's going to be tremendous opportunities during the collapse. There always is.
Okay, I was getting to that. That was the next thing.
The world is going to be the same. Jeff, it's going to look the same. We're just need a whole reboot in the operating system. And a lot of stuff that they work for that they thought they had is going to be gone. But, the world's going to look the same.
Out of every crash, there is opportunity. Every travesty, financial travesty, there's opportunity. I don't know how to explain it, but if you have the ability to apply yourself and to engage in deductive reasoning, you'll find out. There are things to do, and there will be things to do. What are your thoughts on the idea of major reduction in the world population? Just want to throw this out at you. There's talk about reducing by 80% or even more. That the Georgia Guidestones tell us that they want us to be less. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, if we continue to support those kind of men, that's probably what's going to happen. Because once they get AI and robotics there,
they won't need us.
People are just going to actually die off, because how else are they going to make money? Human labor is what we've used all of our lives to create wealth to feed ourselves. When you have robot automation and AI, and it's not just, it's not the McDonald's workers. I was seeing a doctor who had the IBM Watson team giving 99% accurate diagnosis better than recently college-graduated doctors. Yeah.
Doctors, yeah.
There will be no job, except for maybe you, because you have a unique voice in the following. Artists, maybe, but even, AI is creating art. So we need healers.
It is. Music, art, and the last thing I remember, the part that amused me was just a really and hilarious story. It was all about they're going to teach AI common sense. And I said, whose common sense? Who's going to teach AI common sense? The other thing is AI is coming at us like a runaway freight train.
That's a very important part.
Yeah.
That's a very important part, because AI in itself is not bad. But if it's the consciousness of the people who are behind it that have created all this debt and death, that's the problem. So it's not AI, it's not anything. It's always the consciousness behind it. So we have to be very cognizant of who we are supporting every day with our votes, our views, our dollars, and everything. So I'm a big believer that you make conscious individual solutions to fix all of these unconscious collectivist problems.
Very good. Very good. All right. You have, talking about a following, you've got over 22 million views on your YouTube channel for the greatest truth never told. That's extraordinary now, especially because the number of views are suppressed and controlled in many cases, not all, by the YouTubers. They'll tell you what you get, how many hits you get, and all the rest of it. So that's great. Tell us about that, the greatest story, the greatest truth never told.
Yeah, that was a project that I had started when I predicted the 2008 financial crisis. I left my family's business May of 2008. I sold my house at the top of the housing bubble and rented for a couple of years, and I bought silver, and silver went up tremendously during that time period. And I took that as an opportunity to leave my family's business, and I warned them, bad times are coming, and they suffered, but they survived because they were prepared somehow. I don't know if they would be able to survive the next one, because the next one's going to be much bigger. But yeah, I've been working this whole time trying to understand the exoteric world, the psychological, political, the historical, monetary, spiritual, all these things that are going inside to creating our outside world. This big illusion, this big Maya that we all get all enchanted with. And I've come to the realization that everything outside of us is an illusion, and that the only thing that really matters is, and what we can control, is what's inside of us. So I have been going through this whole thing. I could tell anybody, how specific wars started through, the Bolshevik Revolution funded by the Gold Train, by Warburgs funding the Bolsheviks to overthrow the Tsar.
We spent a lot of time on that material here. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, the whole outside world is an illusion. So the only thing that we can control is our thoughts and our actions, who we're with, our vibration that we continue with, how we choose to store our wealth, how we choose to use our views. And I think it's a very empowering possibility for people to consider that the world may be screwed up, but their world doesn't have to be. And I would implore people to stop worrying about things outside of your control. You can't control it anyways, and really start preparing yourself mentally, physically, and spiritually for what's coming. Because what is coming, we all know. Like, this cannot go on forever. $400 trillion will not be paid. And the only way that they would pay it is to create infinite money, which would destroy the value of our dollars and our stocks and our houses and our jobs and everything. And they get to get away with it. We won't. So
I wonder
that's
what
why
they're
I'm
doing.
imploring people to buy silver.
Yeah, I wonder what they're doing. I wonder what they are doing in their smoky, dark rooms with their whiskey and talking, trying to come up with a new way to re-rig the game to allow it to continue on longer. I think they've got to be running out, as you've been saying, though, running out of techniques and tricks.
Yeah,
they got to be about to the end of the line.
Yeah. I'm convinced that the whole Al Gore global warming carbon Ponzi scheme was one of their brilliant ideas, that they thought that they were going to tax all of humanity and all of human life.
Yes, of course.
Mother Nature said, let's have the sunspots cool down and prove Al Gore that it has nothing to do with man-made global warming. It has everything to do with the sunspot cycle. But my fear is that they want to have some sort of crypto universal mark of the beast. And if we allow this to continue, and there's a good possibility that they'll do this, they could quite conceivably crash the entire global economy, and then the big central bankers would get together and say, hey, we have an idea. Why don't we make a basket of currencies and have some cryptocurrency that stabilizes all the national currencies, and it'll be the same bankers, and Basel, Switzerland, and Frankfurt, and all these other ones, and they'll want to go out there to have essentially a crypto mark of the beast, because cryptocurrency is just all these bitcoins and all this other stuff. It was just a test tube baby for what the banksters ultimately want, which is the ability to tax, and trap all of humanity under a currency that they would have total control over. So that's what I think that they want to do. I hope, I pray that that's not going to happen. I think that the political, financial, spiritual ramifications of this collapse, they're not going to be able to propose anything because of the amount of calamity that they caused. And I hope that humanity realizes it's not the politicians and the CEOs, folks. It's the people that own and control the central banks. They are the root of this.
I laugh every time I see a story that Trump is taking on the Federal Reserve. What a joke.
Yeah.
What do these people think?
It's all a joke.
They don't think that's the answer. They're not thinking. They don't understand. All right. This is all very important. You opened the crypto door. Let's spend just a couple minutes on that. There are thousands of different cryptocurrencies now being floated around there.
They're all Ponzi schemes.
Every single one,
nothing.
Of course. Yeah. Now, Facebook with their Libra, if I have it right, I think I do, in one of the most humorous of all these, the crypto ventures, is going to base their Libra on fiat currency. Do I have that right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Now, how nuts does it get?
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what the mark of the beast would look like, right? It would be a crypto mark of the beast with a basket of currencies.
Exactly.
So they're just so they're rolling it out, and I don't think it's going to be accepted, obviously, because what they're trying to do is to try to say, hey, this global economy is going to fail. So if we have one currency and all these currencies fall together, guess what? That becomes a stable currency because they're all falling together. There's no race to the bottom. So there's only one way out, folks. It's buying gold and silver and real things, getting out of all these digital illusions of wealth. If your house has gone up tremendously in value, I would consider, either taking a loan against it, because you can amortize that loan over 30 years and inflation would pay it away. If you took out a mortgage in Venezuela prior to their hyperinflation, your house you would own for a basket of eggs. So that's how hyperinflations work. And it's not the price of silver and gold that's going up. It's the value of the currency going down. Your audience is probably old enough to remember when we did have silver. We had 25-cent gas, and it was a quarter ounce of silver. Well, guess what? A quarter ounce of silver will still buy you a gallon of gas. But now a gallon of gas is $3 or $4. So it's a stable currency. I would implore people to look at that. I have my own brand of silver called Silver Shield. I make radical designs that you've never seen before in any coins. I challenge all the governments. I challenge the Queen of England. I challenge all these things as a private individual solution to all these collectivist problems. I've been doing it for 7 years, and I find a lot of them on eBay being worth multiples of the actual silver that I put in these coins. And it's been a tremendously fulfilling project and one that's starting to grow, because I think it'll be very interesting. If I am right and all this does collapse and silver does go up in value, and then I spent 7 years creating all this art and all this silver pointing out that, I would think that those coins would be worth a lot of money on the other side because we called it when nobody else saw it.
Well, it sounds like you've certainly earned that. You're a visionary. It's right in front of us, though, but people just cannot see because they're not allowed to look anymore. And this issue of chipping people, there is technology afoot that few would even dream of that is being already deployed and used to take charge of us in a biological, a spiritual even, an intellectual sense. They're hard at work at doing things that are really dark and dirty. So they're not our friends. And I think the big message here is to liquidate as much as you can and invest it in something substantial.